Welcome to Wildly Capable with Kate, a podcast made for those looking to unleash their wildest capabilities. I'm your host, Kate DeRocher, a dating, relationship, and self-worth coach on a mission to help people build better relationships, starting with the one they have with themselves. In each episode, we'll dig deep, turn inwards, and embark on a transformative journey. Together, we'll break free from unhealthy patterns, rip through self-limiting beliefs, heal past wounds, and build unwavering self-worth, all to create healthier relationships as a result. Get ready to explore the wild, untapped potential within you. Are you ready to see just how wildly capable you are? Subscribe now and join us on this empowering adventure. Remember, your wildest capabilities await. Being successful in the world of dating means so much more than just having a carefully curated dating app profile. I'm going to talk to you today about how to choose wisely when it comes to dating. Hi everyone, I'm Kate DeRocher, and you're listening to Wildly Capable with Kate, the podcast made for those looking to unleash their wildest capabilities. If you don't already know me or this is your first time tuning in, I'm a dating, relationship, and self-worth coach who's on a mission to help you build better relationships, starting first with the relationship you have with yourself. And the relationship you have with yourself plays a huge role in who you do or do not choose to date and how your dating experiences shape up as a result. So let's dive into how you can actually be aware and careful and wise when you are choosing who to give your time and energy to. I know dating can be daunting, and I know it can take a lot of energy and time, and we often think that in order for our dating experiences to go well, we need to pick out the right outfit or swipe right on the right guy. We think that it is the superficial things that will make it easier for us, but in reality, in order to find quality, amazing matches when you are dating, you need to know how to vet them. You need to be aware of who you are saying yes to. And you need to understand that every yes you say to one person is a no to somebody else. So if you do not choose wisely, if you spend a ton of time with a person who maybe isn't a good fit for you, that means forfeiting time with somebody who could be. Every yes is a no to something else. So let's make sure that you are set up to choose wisely when you are meeting people and when you are deciding whether to proceed with somebody or not. How do you do that? First and foremost, we need to figure out what your values, needs, boundaries, and non-negotiables are. If you don't know those 4 things about yourself, you're going to have a really hard time dating. Because what's going to happen is you're going to meet somebody great who maybe isn't actually very compatible with you or where your life is going. But because they're great, you'll get swayed into dating them. And then years down the road, months, whatever, however long it takes, you'll start to see the cookies crumble and you'll start to realize, yeah, this person's great, but they're not a match for me. Or you will choose somebody who's not a good match for you, period. Somebody who's maybe completely unhealthy. And you'll choose them and you'll end up with them because you don't already have the boundaries formed that are needed to protect you from those sorts of people and situations. So your needs, your boundaries, your values, and your non-negotiables are extremely necessary when it comes to setting yourself up for success in the world of dating. As a dating coach, I meet with a ton of different men and women from all around the world. People in different cultures, people from different walks of life, people who are different ages. And yet one of the biggest things that I try to get them to understand is themselves. Because when they do understand themselves, they are more aware and respectful of themselves and they love themselves more when it comes to dating. So one of the activities that I do to get them to know themselves better is I help them determine their values. Now, values are a bit esoteric and kind of hard to understand because they can be physical, they can be psychological, they can be even less defined than that. But values are basically the things or the ideals that you pay attention to, that matter to you, that guide your life. Values can be things like travel, a kind of a physical thing. It can be money. It can be altruism. Maybe you really care about volunteering. It can be honesty, communication, integrity, character. All of us have a different value system. And to help you figure out what your value system is, especially as you're listening to me and thinking, oh my gosh, like there's so many options for me to choose from. How do I know what actually matters to me? There's actually a link that I'll put in the show notes. It's a list of 200 values. If you're listening to this, I'm going to have you do exactly what I have my clients do. I'm going to have you click that link, go through the 200 values, narrow those 200 values into 15 values, and then narrow those 15 values into 5 values. And those 5 values are roughly the values that drive your life. They are the things that you care about, the things that you're passionate about, the things that will be important for you to look for in another person. Now, this doesn't mean that your values and another person's values have to be completely aligned. They never will be. But it does mean that you want somebody who maybe at least has some care for the same things that you do. This is an activity that my own relationship and trauma coach, Natalie Kashani, walked me through. She's amazing. Check her out on Instagram. But when I was trying to figure out whether I wanted to get back together with Bobby or not, she told me, what do you value? Is he breaking your values or does he align with those values? You need to figure that out. And when she said that to me, I was like, I kind of know what I value. I really like having fun. I like laughter. Travel's great. Being dependable, having aspirations. The very surface level things came to mind. But when she had me actually go through this list, I was able to find so many more words and so much more vocabulary to put to what my true values are. And I discovered things that drive my life that I maybe wasn't even aware of. For example, my number one value after I went through that whole list and narrowed it down from 200 to 15 to 5, my number one value was heroism. And I would have never thought of that word on my own. But the reason heroism is so important to me is because I've grown up kind of being in a protector role. I'm the older sister. I had to defend myself a lot growing up with difficult family experiences or bad relationships or being bullied by girls in school. I had to learn how to be the hero in my own story. And it makes so much sense because now I'm a coach who's showing up and helping other people heal their relationships and build better lives for them too. So heroism has been a value that has driven my life and eventually led to me creating the career that I have. If I'm with somebody who doesn't understand that concept or who thinks it's silly, that person isn't going to be a match for me. On the other hand, I found somebody, my partner Bobby, who really understands that and who really applauds that in me. He sees the driving forces behind why I do what I do, heroism being one of them. So when I discovered that value and I saw that Bobby aligned with it, not only did I better understand that I'm choosing a healthy partner for me, but I understood myself more in the process. So go through that list and let yourself be surprised. Heroism definitely surprised me. What Natalie had me do when I was reading that list is I went through each word. It's literally a list of so many words, 200 words. I went through each one and I would kind of sit with the word to see how it felt when I read it and when I said it out loud. And there were some words that I really felt something with, like heroism. And there were other words I was like, that word doesn't really mean much to me. So that wasn't really one of my driving values. And a list of 5 is pretty small. There's definitely more values that we care about and that shape who we are. But let's narrow down just what your 5 are. So that way, when you're dating, you can pay attention to the other person's words, actions, and behaviors to see if you think that their values may be at least similar to yours. Choosing somebody whose values are close to yours is so important in creating a healthy and lasting relationship. If you have completely mismatched values, when it comes down to the hard decisions in life, when it comes down to determining the direction of your future and of your relationship, those values are what's going to matter. So you want to find somebody who's somewhat close to those. Doesn't have to be perfect, but it is something to pay attention to. Next up, in order to learn how to choose wisely when it comes to dating, I want you to figure out what your needs are. When we date, we so often don't know what our needs are, or we push them to the back burner because we're caring more for the other person's needs, or we're afraid that if we share our needs, they're going to be rejected or seen as too much. And we end up losing ourselves, and we end up 6 months, a year, 10 years down the line, feeling completely unfulfilled and unsatisfied in our relationships because our needs aren't being met. Needs can be things like the need for very clear communication. Perhaps in the past, you had somebody who gave you the silent treatment, stonewalled you, maybe a parent or caregiver who wasn't very good with their words. So communication is something that you really value. Another need could be reassurance. Maybe you were cheated on in the past. Maybe you had somebody who was always looking at other men or women while you were with them. So your need for reassurance to feel safe in a relationship was developed out of that. And that's more than okay. It's totally possible to find a partner who communicates well, who reassures you, who meets every single one of your other needs. But in order to find somebody who meets those needs, you need to know what they are within yourself first and foremost. So spend time reflecting and looking inwards to see what you've noticed in past relationships or friendships that have made you feel safer and better and more whole and more healed and healthier in those relationships. Pay attention to what those things are because those are your needs. And then once you figure out what they are, don't hide them. Don't shy away from them. Don't think that they're too much or they're too clingy or nobody will ever want to meet them. It's absolutely not true. Your needs are always valid, and there's always somebody out there who can meet them. Next up, the next thing I want you to start paying attention to so you can learn how to date better and choose healthier, more high quality matches are your non-negotiables. So non-negotiables are basically the things in relationships that we know we absolutely 100% without a question in our mind need to have in order for that person to work with us, in order for that relationship to last. So examples of non-negotiables, they're the bigger things in life. They can look like wanting to have kids, the desire to start a family. It can look like maybe having the same religion as you. It can look like wanting to live in a specific city as you. There are so many things in our lives that, at least right now, we feel like we are never going to budge on. And if you end up being with somebody who doesn't align with those non-negotiables, one or both of you is going to be compromising in the end. And every relationship takes compromise. I'm not just talking about the average compromise of, I want to eat this, you want to eat at this restaurant, they're different, let's do something else. I'm not talking about that sort of compromise. I'm talking about a really big, really serious sacrifice, a sacrifice that could lead to you feeling very unhappy years down the road and in the relationship. We often will date somebody thinking that we'll be able to change their mind. And then when we can't, we're shocked and we can't believe it. We've been with this person for years. Why wouldn't they budge? Why wouldn't they give us what we want? We thought that they were going to eventually. You need to date the person for face value for who they are today, not hoping in their potential or hoping that they're going to change down the line. So figure out what your non-negotiables are, and then make sure you ask the questions needed when you're getting to know somebody to see if their non-negotiables line up with yours. If you are somebody who deeply desires having a family and you meet somebody who knows that's just off the plate for them, it's not something they've ever wanted, I'm sorry, but that's probably not the person for you. And even if that was somebody who maybe was meant to come into your life for a reason, chances are it's not somebody who's going to last in your life for the long haul as your romantic partner. You need somebody whose non-negotiables fit in with yours in order to create the life that you are praying for, hoping for, and desiring. So figure out your non-negotiables now before it is too late. And last but definitely not least is boundaries. I've done a whole episode, about 4 episodes before this one, if you want to scroll back on your podcast streaming app and find it, all about boundaries. And in it, I break down exactly what boundaries are, why they're important, and how to form them. And the reason that I harp so much on them is because I know that without boundaries, you won't be able to choose the healthiest possible match for you. You will end up in toxic or unhealthy or dead-end situations because you didn't stick to what is and isn't okay with you. you let another person sway you, or you didn't use your voice because you didn't want them to leave, whatever it is. When you don't stick to your boundaries, chances are you will end up in a situation and with a person who isn't a healthy or strong fit for you. When you honor your boundaries and you set them in a healthy and kind and loving way with another person, and they show up and they meet those boundaries, when they actually respect them, that's when you know that you have a great match. That's when you know you have somebody who values what you need and want and desire and what is or isn't okay with you. Boundaries are so important to figuring out who in your life is going to be healthy and who in your life is going to push the limits or break the boundaries or disrespect you in order to get what they want. So form your boundaries. And that doesn't mean that they can't shift slightly or there won't be gray area. There's a lot of gray area with boundaries. But having an idea of what does and doesn't work for you now will save you from so much difficulty and heartache and drama down the line. So form your boundaries, stick to them, especially when dating, and see who respects them. And if that person doesn't respect them, or what you need in your boundary is total polar opposite of what they need, then that's not the right match for you. Then you know you can choose not to be with that person, and that would be the wise choice for you to make in that situation. So it is those 4 things: boundaries, needs, values, and non-negotiables, that I have found time and time again in my own life and with my clients is so important for you to figure out before you start dating and before you choose to spend your life or time or energy on somebody else. I call those 4 things my 4 core lists. And if you work with me, I help you develop that core list and then pay attention to it as you're meeting new people and as you're going on dates. So before we keep going, let me just say that if you're interested in coaching, you can DM me the word capable at Coach Kate DeRocher on Instagram or TikTok, and we'll explore what coaching could look like for you. I'll help you figure out all of these things, and I will help you build better matches, better relationships as a result. So DM me and we can get started. Next up, outside of those 4 things, you need to figure out what your desires are. I see desires as being sort of secondary to the 4 core lists that I just talked about. So your desires are, certain physical traits or personality traits or, characteristics of a person that you're hoping for. Like, there are desires that you have. We all have them. And it's not just for physical. It could also be the type of job that a person has, whether a person likes to travel or not, their political views, things like that. We may desire certain things in our future partner, in another person. And those are important to pay attention to, but they're not nearly as important as paying attention to the 4 core lists that I just mentioned. Like I've said in other past episodes, it is not the chemistry that you have with somebody that will carry you through the hard times, which chemistry often comes from what you have in common, your desires. It's more so the compatibility that you have with a person that will carry you through the hard times. So compatibility is driven from your values, your needs, your boundaries, and your non-negotiables. So they're both important, but the 4 core lists I just talked about will carry you through the hardest times in a relationship more than just your desires will. But that doesn't mean that your desires aren't valid or important too. However, remember that your desires are not hard and fast. There needs to be some flexibility with them. I'm somebody who's been to roughly 26 countries. I love traveling. I love exploring new places and cultures and meeting new people. And so I thought I needed somebody who was really well-traveled and really loved to travel. My partner, Bobby, hasn't had the opportunity to travel to as many places as I have. And that is more than okay. And I discovered that there were the other traits about Bobby that I valued more than that. Bobby and I can travel together. We can see the world together. And we can experience those things in our relationship, even though he hasn't experienced them before. So in the end, that specific desire that I used to think was really important ended up not mattering that much at all. So figure out your desires, but don't make them rules. Don't make them walls that keep other people out. Next up, let's talk about a few other notes and tips that I have when it comes to learning how to choose wisely when it comes to dating. First, remember that people tell you who they are. You need to listen. Oftentimes when we're starting to get to know somebody, they'll say things in passing or as jokes or not even realize the extent of what they're saying when they're talking to you just over, dinner conversation and as you're getting to know them. they'll say things that actually reveal a part of who they are. I've heard so many men say things like, my ex is crazy. And that in reality could mean, oh, I just called them crazy so I would get out of taking accountability for what I did to make them react. Or you may hear somebody say something like, I'm just looking to have fun. I'm not looking for anything serious. And wanting to be in the relationship with them, wanting to see it work, plays it off as if that's cool and no problem. You're looking for the same thing. But then down the road, when you try to get into a more serious relationship with that person, what they said at first still holds true and you're left sorely disappointed. So people tell you who they are. You need to pay attention. You need to listen. And on top of that, pay attention to more than just their words. See if their words, what they say they're going to do, align with their actions. If they tell you they're going to call you and then they don't call you, you really need to take note of that. If they tell you that they're going to pick you up at 4 and they pick you up at 5, pay attention. A person's words and actions need to line up in order for them to be in integrity. And when they don't, it will leave you feeling crappy. It will leave you, feeling manipulated. It is a form of manipulation. So you need to pay attention to it. Make sure that you are listening when somebody tells you who they are and that you are paying attention to see if their words align with their actions. And next, make sure you take the time to truly get to know a person before jumping into a relationship with them. I always say that roughly a 3-month time frame is a good amount of time to see who a person truly is, to see their true colors. You will only see the other sides of a person, the sides that they try not to reveal, the sides that they keep hidden from themselves or others. You will only see those behaviors and those parts of them come out with time. So instead of rushing into things and seeing that person every week and missing the red flags that you will see with more time, slow down, form a very slow, healthy foundation, and get to know that person as much as you can before you start to trust yourself in your life, in your time, in your energy with them. Slow down. And with that, make sure that what that person is looking for in a relationship aligns with what you're looking for. If you're looking for something serious and they are just getting out of a relationship or just looking to have fun for the summer or traveling and only in your town for a couple of months and then they're leaving, that's something to pay attention to. You don't want to get into a situation with that person. Like I've talked about in past episodes, that's exactly what leads us to being in situationships. So ask them, what are you looking for? Where do you see this going? What are you hoping for when you're going on dates? Why are you on dating apps? Ask them to see what their answer is, to see what they're looking for. And over time, pay attention to see, again, if their behaviors match up with what they said. If they say they're looking for a relationship, but they never put a label on it, they never have the conversation of what are we with you after a reasonable amount of time, then you can maybe see, okay, maybe what they told me they were looking for isn't fully actually what they're ready for, or maybe they were being a little dishonest, and now I need to excuse myself before it continues any longer. But so often we don't share what we're looking for because we don't want to push another person away. We don't want to come off too strong. We don't want to scare them away. But I've said this before and I will say it a million times. The only people who you are going to push away and scare off by sharing your needs with are the people who are not meant to be in your life or continue in your life in the first place. So share what you're looking for, ask them what they're looking for, and don't see it as something scary. See that conversation as a way to weed through anybody who's not meant to make it with you in the long haul. Remember, someone who is secure in themselves takes things slow. They have a full life and they are evaluating the other person for the position of being their long-term partner. They understand that a healthy relationship is built on a foundation of mutual respect and trust. And they take the time needed to get to know the other person before diving headfirst into a relationship. How can you take things slower? What does that look like? What I suggest is only 1 date a week for at least the first month or so. Don't spend all of your waking time with that person, and definitely don't spend all of your time talking to them. You will get attached that way. Number 2, no trips. I know this is a hard one for some people because some people's lifestyles are to jet all over the world or When you date somebody who maybe has more of a disposable income, that's something they do naturally. But going on a trip with somebody, having that sort of like romantic fairy tale time with them will cause you to get attached prematurely. So no trips in the first 3 months as you're getting to know somebody. I feel so strongly about the no trip idea because I have made that own mistake in my own life. In the past, I went on a trip too soon to Greece with a guy who I was just starting to get to know. And doing that, going to such a romantic, beautiful place with him, caused me to see him in a different light, caused me to romanticize him and the relationship. And then once I realized with time that he was very unhealthy, very emotionally manipulative, very damaging to my mental well-being and my mental health, it was too late for me to be able to detach easily and quickly. I had become so attached to him for many reasons, one of them being that trip, and I wasn't able to break away and break free in the way that I could have had I built a slower, healthier foundation. So slow down, 1 date a week, no trips. Try that out. Now, before we wrap up, I'm just going to rapid fire a few other tips that I have for you to help you learn how to choose better matches. So here we go. Take some notes if you need to. The first one is don't lie to make the other person like you. If you lie, you'll be setting both of you up for failure down the line. Next up, be vulnerable and real. Another characteristic of a secure person in dating is mature vulnerability. Don't be afraid to be vulnerable and put your guard down, but also understand that showcasing all of your wounds and talking about all your traumas on the first date, that's not vulnerability. That's emotional dumping and oversharing. Next, don't ignore red flags, but also don't let them be walls. There needs to be grace, compassion, and understanding to a certain degree when you're getting to know somebody. So pay attention, but don't just cut somebody off at the very first red flag until you know it's like something actually that's serious. Next, don't be afraid to walk away. Don't get stuck in the mindset that if you leave, you're going to have to go on a million more dates to find another person that you even like. Don't get stuck believing that there's nobody else out there, so you better just stick with this person. Walk away when you realize that they are not the right fit for you. And last but not least, remember that your time and energy are valuable. Every yes is a no to something else, just like we talked about earlier. So choose wisely in dating. Don't spend all of your time, energy, money, and effort on somebody who doesn't align with your 4 core lists, doesn't align with your values, needs, boundaries, goals, direction. Pay attention to those things. Ask the right questions that you need to in order to uncover those things, and then pay attention to see if the behaviors and the actions align. I hope this helps. Creating your 4 core list is something that I walk all of my clients through and something I would love to help you do even further. It's something I did in my own life before I attracted my current partner, the right partner for me. And I fully believe that had I not become aware of and paid attention to those things, I would still be going down the road of dating the wrong guys for me. I would still be attracting low quality, emotionally unavailable, unhealthy men, and I wouldn't be in the healthy, fulfilling relationship that I am in today. So if you are looking for help in breaking that cycle, or you want to learn how to choose more wisely when it comes to dating, DM me the word capable at Coach Kate DeRocher on Instagram or TikTok, and we'll set up a time to talk about what coaching could look like for you. I'm here to help you figure all this out and build really beautiful, lasting relationships as a result. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave me a comment. Follow me on Instagram or TikTok to let me know your thoughts. Subscribe, like, rate, review the podcast, all of the things. Please give your feedback. Please share it with friends. It helps more than you can imagine. Thank you so much for tuning in. I can't wait to see you guys here next time on Wildly Capable with Kate.